All right, here we go. So this is a crack at the likely interview questions we're going to have for COM 489, the portfolio class. Hi, Jennifer. A little bit late here, but we'll give this a whirl. So, first of all, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. Born in Mercer Island, Washington, originally, born in 1995, kind of a millennial. Have loved journalism since I was a kid. I've always wanted to go into a field where I could be a storyteller, not just as a news reporter, but also kind of just sharing people's stories and kind of giving people a different perspective on life, whether that's through documentary style storytelling or giving the news in a hard factual way that you might not see in a lot of these big national companies. And so I suppose that you could call me just an avid storyteller. I've always been that way since I was a kid. Grew up always being very talkative to my friends, loving to share a lot of things and opinions that I happen to have. So, yeah, I'm just a storyteller with a dream that wants to go into news. I've always been that way. Currently a digital journalism major here at Central, try to accomplish that. And yeah, strengths and weaknesses. I suppose kind of break it down first with the weaknesses. I have a very big tendency to be a overt perfectionist. Um, when I'm editing stories in the Mac lab here on nights of Newswatch, for example, I can be very, very tedious and want to put so much effort into something I really, really want to perfect. And that can lead to a lot of issues where I can get myself caught behind everybody else. I can come in at 4 p.m. with the expectation of we want your story done, edited, and exported by 9 or 10, for example. And most of the rookies, most of the Newswatch managers, they'll get their stories done in a couple hours, no problem. I'm sitting there at midnight, still working on my story, trying to make sure that it's really, really good and really splicing that audio well together. And how long should this clip be? Oh, should it be a half second longer? That kind of thing. Really focusing heavy detail into my script writing. And so I would suppose that in that regard, I can be the perfectionist in me tries so hard and doesn't think oftentimes about the deadline or doesn't think about just get the job done. Doesn't have to be perfect. And so that can really hold me back. I would suppose that preparation can also be a little bit of a big deal, a little bit of weakness. As you can tell with the interview, I didn't come exactly the most prepared that I would normally do for a major job interview. If my career was on the line, I would just say, well, this class is important to me. But if my career was on the line, I'd definitely probably have a lot more notes in front of me, and I'd be a lot more prepared to answer these kinds of questions. Um, and I think that just the preparation for anything, I can upload assignments as you'll see tonight at the last minute, and that's a no go. So I think preparation is something I'm going to work on. That comes with good organization and making sure that I really know what's important in the current moment. In terms of my strengths, though, not to bury me too much, I'm an extremely approachable and kind human being. I know that's kind of a cliche term, but I can't begin to tell you the number of relationships I've made with people who you wouldn't think I can get along with. I had an editor-in-chief of the Observer tell me just about a couple weeks ago, and I really took this to heart, that she says, I've met so many dozens of people through my time as an editor-in-chief of the Observer, working with all the different student media here at Central, working at high school and student media, and she said, you were the most kind-hearted individual I've ever met. And I didn't take that just kind of like, oh, well, I'm just a nice friend to you. I took that sincerely. And I've heard that a lot from people. A lot of people tell me that I have this attitude and this vision that you need to see the kindness in every individual that walks the planet, the face of this earth. Um, there were some people who have very, very staunchy, not so great political views that came to Central several weeks ago from the group Patriot Prayer. And they're a very far right group. They've known to cause a lot of issues in cities like Portland and Seattle. And they were not viewed very kindly here when came to Central. And in my job as a reporter, I'm not there to cast my opinion or my personal bias against them. I'm there to do my job, which is to share the story of not only the community responding to Patriot Prayer, but also Patriot Prayer and why they're here. So I made a massive effort to follow them around as closely as possible with my camera and tripod and talk to these people. Now, whether I disagree with their political opinion, that's besides the point. I'm here to get to know these people and get to know certain individuals. One of the individuals was an 18-year-old girl who just got out of high school, and she said that she felt ostracized by her whole class and felt that her views when she grew up in Portland were severely cast aside and she was bullied. And when I sat down with her in the bar at Frontier Tavern, to be exact, after the whole parade and rally and whatever was over that Friday night a couple weeks ago, she really got to know me and I really got to know her. And I didn't do it out of trying to get the story, but just out of, this is a fellow human being, and I want to get to know you. And so finding that compromise, trying to be friendly to people who may not necessarily be the nicest people in the world, that's what I'm all about. I want to be kind. I want to be approachable. I want to be friendly to all people across this planet. And that means a lot to me. And then I guess the second strength, sorry for the ramble, that I could probably cast is that I really am extremely thorough in my research. Whenever I do a story, it's not just about getting facts from sources or when I refer to sources, I'm of course talking about people, but I really take the extra effort to look up things that I really care about. Recently, I just submitted, actually yesterday night, I submitted a written test for a job application at a news station in Helena, Montana. And the written test had me turn a bunch of press releases or government things, memos into VOs or VOSOTs. And one of the things that I did was I turned a very simple AP wire press release into a VO about Montana state licenses becoming compliant with the Real ID Act, which is essentially they put a little star on your driver's license and you can go fly anywhere across the United States next year. And I took, obviously, all the information from the information given me from the AP and put it into my story. But I said, something's missing. I've got to see what's in this story, what's deeper. And I wasn't given a lot of really cute information in the story. Well, I looked up the Montana Real ID law, and it turns out that one of the best ways to determine if your if your driver's license meets the requirements of the law is you have a little gold star that sits at the top of your driver's license. And I just learned that by looking it up. It wasn't in the AP Wire thing given to me. I just put it in there. So I put it in my story, and I got feedback from my written test that said, wow, we didn't tell you to do that. And they said, that's really cool that you went the extra mile to research that. So research, extremely important and very valuable. Tell me about a time when you had to work as a part of a team. Well, I do work a part as a team. Excuse me. I've been working for Central Newswatch since the September 2018, and it is completely a team-based effort. We are just like any other news organization. We've got usually roughly every quarter, 10 to 15 students that really care about coming out with a fantastic broadcast news organization. And all year long, I've had to work with these people to create fantastic stories. Specifically in terms of how important the team collaboration was with me. We recently had to cover, unfortunately, a sheriff deputy death here in Ellensburg about a month ago. And while this whole ordeal was going on, I was in Dallas, Texas. Great timing to be somewhere where I really needed to be here, kind of taking care of everything. And so while I'm in Dallas, Texas, while this whole ordeal is going on, there are very little reporters that are essentially out here as well. This is during spring break. And we have to cover this story. This is one of the biggest stories we've ever had here at Central. We have to cover this story. So I got in touch with the best reporters I knew were going to be back to Central as soon as possible. And I said, let's come up with a contingency plan to cover this event in the best way possible. So we got me, Daisy Hernandez, Charles Prater, Austin Lane, several other reporters, created a group chat on Facebook, and we really just checkmarked every task that we would do to get the story on our Facebook page out to our viewers. I assigned Daisy Hernandez to talk to this PIO, the Ellensburg PIO. I assigned myself to talk to the Kansas County Sheriff PIO, just to get more information about where the procession is going to be, where the service is going to be. I assigned Charles Prater to get in touch with King 5 so we can get footage from inside Nicholson Pavilion. This is all completely dependent on all of us working together. And at the very end of the whole ordeal, we came out with a 6 minutes worth of video covering the sheriff's deputy death as well as the procession beforehand. And those two package stories blew up on our Facebook and were well commended and sincerely thanked by the community because of the work of me, Charles, Daisy, Austin, getting together, communicating on Facebook, assigning them to the right places, Daisy getting up at 8 in the morning to go to Nicholson to pick up press credentials, me standing up at Radio Hill near KXLE to film Facebook Live the procession as it goes by. All of that is possible thanks to the team. If it was just me, this would not have been possible. It's all purely about communication and collaboration. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult client or customer. Boy, I cannot begin to tell you how much this comes up here at Central. The biggest problem that we have, and maybe Jennifer, you can relate to this, is we have a major issue communicating with our public affairs department about getting records requests. And it has been hellacious the past year, really trying to enhance our stories by getting data from the university, whether it comes from the active shooter threat we had a couple months ago, or just any sort of incident that occurs on campus. It seems like it just takes forever to get a hold of the university and to work out this kind of situation. So the one I want to specifically refer to is I helped Observer recently try to get some more information about the active shooter threat that happened several months ago. We wanted to get more information about why it took so long for students to be told about it. We want to get information about text messages between the police department and the university, etc. So long story short, we were just kind of shafted. That's the word I'm going to use to try and get more information from the university. And these are public records that we want, that we can get from the university about this ordeal, from the police department. And so recently we attended, as well as myself, an IRE workshop, which is called Investigative Reporters and Editors Workshop, where we met with Susanna Frame from King 5. And what she did was so fantastic. She laid us out a template for what a public records request looks like from a professional television station and how to approach getting a public record from the university. And just by simply using her template, we asked her for permission to use it and just fill in some of the blanks instead of the return address from King 5. We changed it to Central Observer. It was unbelievable. It's as if the university started caring about us. We simply just sent them that template, just trying to get public records from them, and they started sending us information left and right. Whether that's the legalese or the intimidation of the fact that we didn't necessarily cite the Washington State Public Records Act, I don't know. But certainly, unless you really kind of act like you know what you're doing and you really seem to kind of tell the university they don't have much of a stance in this situation, they are the most ultimate difficult client or customer to work with in terms of getting information and creating great stories that it's based off of information that they provide. Why do I want to work for us? So I'm going to apply this to a job I'm recently trying to get in Helena, Montana, which has been quite the battle. I'm going to have to tell you, Jennifer, about that coming up in the next few weeks because it's been a tough decision trying to decide if I want to work there or not. But if I were to be asked the same question from the news director at Helena, why I'd want to work for them, there's no better way to get into political reporting, which is what I mostly would like to do with my life, kind of eventually turn it into foreign correspondence, which I'll address in the next question. But I would say that the most important thing with journalism and news reporting is you have to start in a small market and you work your way up the totem pole. It is so rare to get a reporter from a small college town or just any place and just throw them right in front of the camera in front of a large market like Seattle, Portland, LA, New York. It just doesn't happen. And so where do you start? You start in a smaller market like Helena, Montana, Yakima, Washington. You can develop your craft. You can get your time on camera so you can make your mistakes in a place where people are a lot more forgiving and it's a lot less tense and less stressful. It's not easy, but working in a smaller market is exactly what you have to do. And this opportunity provided before me to be a political reporter in a battleground state like Montana, where the state is considered by many political insiders as a purple state, that elected President Donald Trump a Republican in 2016, but has had a Democratic governor that's pretty liberal since 2013. There's no better place to get started in political reporting. And if you can work your way in 2 years as a basic political reporter out of the state capital, meet legislators, get to cover what's really affecting Helena citizens and Montanans everywhere, that's so important to me. And this is an opportunity you just really can't turn down. And I think that being able to start somewhere like Helena and eventually work your way up through the political reporting totem pole, that would be so huge for me. And I'm going to try to wrap this up under 15 minutes, hopefully. Where do I see myself in 5 years? I see myself as a foreign correspondent. I love covering the United States. However, I have such a fascination with foreign governments, especially in particular Asian governments, China, Japan, South Korea. Growing up around a predominantly Asian community at Mercer Island, I've learned a lot speaking with a lot of families about how the governments are so vastly different. You have communist China and capitalist Japan, and so many differences in between those two economies, and yet they so strongly depend upon one another. And I think covering a foreign country's perspective as a United States citizen is so vital. I think that as the years go on, with globalization being such a big deal, Americans want to know what's going on across the world. You've seen it with the recent Sri Lankan bombings and the Haitian earthquake almost 10 years ago now. People really care about what's happening in the world. Yeah, there's a lot of nationalism and pride in the United States, but I think if you present news about other countries in a way that's relatable to the United States, in a way that you can localize it, people really do care about that. And people want to know what's going on in the world. To put it simply, the rise of K-pop. I know it sounds silly, but K-pop, the musical genre, has blown up in the United States over the last 5 to 6 years. Billboard said recently, I read a news article on Billboard that said K-pop might pass American pop in the next few years, just in terms of streaming. It's gone to the point where now K-pop acts are headlining Coachella. And the reason for that is there is a deep attachment to something different, something less Americanized, and people really do care about that. And I think that's just one example of why people want to see other things across the world. And hopefully I can be kind of the beacon and the person that shares that to other people in the United States. Well, that's the 6 questions for you, Jennifer. I again want to apologize for not being completely as thorough as I could be, but hopefully as the quarter goes on, I'll really put in a bigger effort, and I'll be sure to send you a lot more information about job opportunities that I've been offered, and we'll see how it goes from there. So thank you again for watching, and sorry I'm a little bit kind of camera shy. Working on it, trying to be as good of a reporter as possible. So have a good night. Hope all goes well.